This is Rob Pirie with the Coffee Runs Deep podcast, where we interview coffee farmers, coffee roasters, and we share their stories. I truly hope you enjoy the experience. What's up, brewing everybody? We have a special guest on today from Alabama, Mr. Bert Davis with Daysol Coffee Lab. In this episode, we dive into his San Franciscan SF6 Roaster, the inflationary impact on his business, his journey into roasting, canning cold brew coffee, his cold brew coffee cart that he started, and much more. This episode is packed with some great info, but I do want to apologize ahead of time for my mic. I forgot to plug my external mic in before starting, so it may sound a little different than normal, but such is life. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Welcome to the Coffee Runs Deep podcast. I'm your host, Rob Pirie, and today we have a special guest on, Mr. Bert Davis with Daysol Coffee. So, Bert, tell me about yourself, dude.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Good.
So, like you said, I'm the owner and roaster at Daysol Coffee, and we are located in just south of Birmingham in Helena, Alabama. It's about 25 minutes to downtown Birmingham from where we are. We are a roastery forward shop, so roasting is our main focus. Wholesaling is our focus. Do quite a bit of online sales, and we're like a grab and go micro roastery setup, just right, kind of like an old town area, like a downtown Main Street area. So yeah, I've been doing coffee for about 6 or 7 years. I got into roasting when I lived out in Colorado, and we moved out here in 2019, and that's where we built the brand Daysol and have been kind of growing it since then. So.
Okay. My wife was just asking me, what is Daysol?
So my last name is Davis, and my business partner's last name is Solis.
Okay.
So put them together, and it's really hard to find a coffee name that's not taken.
Yeah, it definitely is.
We had a name originally, and it ended up being trademarked, and we didn't know it.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up having to shift early on. So it wasn't a huge deal, but we ended up having to shift, and then we spent months, coming up with a name that nobody else had. And so my wife came up with it, and we Googled it, and it didn't exist. So we got a trademark lawyer to just, run what they do, and we got a trademark. So.
Yeah, it's actually something kind of important. My wife told me a long time ago, like when we first got together, and this was probably, 2013 or something like that. She told me to go ahead and get your domain name, like robertpirie.com, robpirie.com, and just, keep them, because you never know when you're going to need them,
Yeah. And what I realized when I was looking for website addresses is that daysolcoffeelab.com was already taken. Somebody owns it. It's not an actually existing website, but from what I've heard happens is when you register your business, especially when you go through the trademark process, that's all public information. So there are people out there and companies out there that will just go out and buy massive amounts of website addresses. And I've gotten messages multiple times from the people who own it saying, we'll sell it to you for, a great amount of money. And I'm like, so our website is daysolcoffeelab.co, just CO, because that was available. And it, a URL is not expensive unless you have to buy it from somebody, because it already is taken.
So. Exactly. So what about y'all from Colorado? What part of Colorado y'all live in?
We were in the Denver area, and long story short, family brought us back out here. I grew up in South Carolina, so grew up Southern, and then we had some family here in this area that we needed to move back for. So we came
oh,
here.
Heck yeah. Denver's a good little coffee scene too. I was there over the summer, and there's a lot of coffee there. Just coffee Denver? Shops, different coffee. Yeah, it was definitely growing coffee scene out there.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, I liked coffee, but I didn't really know anything about it. And then there was a roaster across the street from my kids' elementary school, and we went in there a few times, and I was like, man, this is really good. And I didn't really know why, but I got to kind of chatting with them and talking with them, and they sold the green coffee beans by the pound you could buy, and they had little air roasters, like countertop air roasters that they sold. And my mother-in-law got me one of those, and I just kind of started doing it at home, and was like, man, this is really good and
Heck yeah.
fascinating. And in that whole rabbit hole of learning, I don't tend to go halfway into anything. I kind of just, it's all or nothing. So, so that's what, that's kind of what led me down that path.
Heck yeah, dude. So as far as like roasters, what are you roasting on now?
I have a San Franciscan roaster. It's a 6-pound roaster that I roast on now. It's a natural gas drum roaster. And
Is that the SF6 or whatever?
Yeah. Yep.
SF6?
Yep. I will eventually grow. Well, probably not too long. I'll grow out of that one. There are days with large orders where I'm like, man, I wish I had a 25 or something today. But
yeah, what's how many hours are you probably roasting a week, like on average?
Not a lot. I mean, it depends on the week. It's, on an average week, 10 hours. On a busy week, over 20. It just totally depends on what's going on. And
and if you could do that one batch and just knock out a bunch and then have all that time to bag, and
we've started doing a lot with cold brew. And cold brew takes a lot of beans. So I've got one particular blend that I use in my cold brew. And so on weeks where I've got to replenish my cold brew, I use a lot of beans those weeks.
Gotcha. What size? I mean, would you stick with San Franciscan then, or would you probably choose?
I would. Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I've been happy with them. I'm really familiar with the machine. I've roasted on a Probat before and a Gießen and a few different other ones, but I've liked this one came from some friends of ours in Denver with Sonder Coffee and Tea.
Okay.
They had this roaster, and actually when they got it, we set it up together and roasted on it for the first time when they got it. And after I was out here, they were upsized into a Diedrich, and they're like, hey, you want to buy this, the old one from us? So drove out there and got it.
Oh, heck yeah.
Diedrichs are good too. I mean, they're all good roasters, but San Fran's been good to me. And now that I know the machine really well, I'll probably stick with them.
Yeah. I was wondering what it would be like if you went up to the SF25, if it'd be that big of a jump, or, different learning curve or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, there'd be a little bit. It's kind of like, if you're always driving a 2-wheel drive Ford Ranger and then you get a big diesel dually, it takes a little bit of time to
exactly
to figure out how it works. But once you've driven it, for 6 months, 3 or 4 months.
So you'd already been kind of roasting on some other machines before you even started then, right?
Yeah, being in Denver, it was a great place to start because there's a lot of great roasters out there, and just kind of through friends and the grapevine, I got to know a lot of people and kind of learn from them and beside them. And I toll roasted on a few roasters out there, just rented time and, got to also be a part of their process. And so when I moved out here, I didn't actually have anything. There's a sample roaster called a Hookie.
Okay, I heard of it.
It's pretty fast. So I would never have done this had I not had another roaster in Denver tell me about it. But you email a guy in Taiwan. He's a retired school teacher, and he emails you back in broken English, and you send him about $2,000. And then about a couple months later, the roaster randomly shows up on your doorstep.
Wow, that's crazy.
And everything, there's no instructions on how to put it together or how to use it. Everything on it is in Taiwanese.
Yeah.
But you'll email, if you got a question, you can email him back and he'll respond in broken English. And amazingly, it somehow worked out. But so I roasted on that. It was only like a half pound, half kilogram roaster. It was really small. So that's kind of what I got started on, is, on my own.
Yeah.
And then, friends and family started wanting more. And then I was like, well, I can't, I'll be roasting 10 hours a day, 5 days a week on this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when I started toll roasting on some larger ones.
Gotcha. So whenever you got to Alabama, then how long from when you got there did you get the little SF6?
Probably about, let's see, we moved here in June, and I think I drove out and got it in like September.
Okay, so pretty quick then.
Yeah, we got through the summer. We bought a house and got moved into the house, and we had things that we were trying to get squared away anyway.
Yeah.
So pretty quick, and we had it out here, and I shared like a garage roasting space, a shared space downtown Birmingham, for a little over a year, and then we ended up deciding, all right, we need something that's actual space that's our own that we can lease out and build out. And we were looking like light industrial at first because we knew roasting was where we wanted to focus. And then it just became like this battle of the light industrial place spaces were huge. And they were, square footage wise, they were cheaper than a retail space, but you're paying for 20,000, 10,000, 20,000 square feet.
Right.
So you're like, man, we can't start a business like that. That's $4,000 a month in rent. So then we started looking at retail spaces, and retail spaces you pay a premium for. So we're like, well, we can't do that. So we ended up finding this little town close by that has, it's a growing town. I think it's 21,000 or so. The demographic was awesome. We were able to find a little spot in their like little old historic Main Street area, but we were able to find a little spot there that was affordable. It gives us like a little small retail space up front where people can come in and buy bags. They can taste the coffee. We've got a little cold brew kegerator set up, but the roaster's right there up front. So when people come in, they're like, "What is that? How does that work?"
The conversation starter.
Oh yeah, and nobody walks in and leaves it's a 15-20 minute conversation every time somebody comes in to get a cup. So, which is good.
It's one of them things like, in the beginning, the time doesn't add up, but if you keep that customer for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, that 20-minute conversation pays off, Right.
And we're, you talk about per item costs or per customer sales and things like that. And, my daughter was working in there with me last summer, and she's like, man, we've only had like 10 customers today. And I said, yeah, but every customer walked in here and spent $25, because
they're buying a bag of coffee and
a bag of coffee and a bag of coffee and a cup, or, so it was a couple bags of coffee, I'll buy one of these for my friend. And once they make that connection with you too, and have that conversation, and they learn and they can see the process, it gets them invested in it.
Yeah.
And it's, we talked about how, just think if 10 customers walked in here and only bought a cup of coffee.
Right.
$30-$40 maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
But we had, $250 in sales today. That's the difference in that what we're focusing ourselves on. There's a lot of great coffee shops in Birmingham and places you can go get a great latte and things like that. We wanted to be something that was different.
How big is your place up there, like square footage wise?
It's just under 14.
Oh, that's pretty good size. Okay.
It is. It was like an old dentist office at one point. So it's got all these random divided rooms into it. But what we did is we made the lobby area kind of the roasters there. We've got a little tasting bar there. We've got our retail shelving there, and we've got a little checkout counter.
Gotcha.
That's our customer interaction space. And then the back is we've got a packaging room. We've got a green storage room. I've got an office. We've got a couple storage rooms and places to can, because I'm doing canned cold brew. And then like your 3-compartment sink and all that stuff in the back there, because we're not doing any food or milk-based products. So we kept it very simple, simple build out, affordable. I did a lot of the work myself. So
I guess that's one of them things too. Like, so if you're just roasting and you don't have you're not doing like meat and poultry and all that type of stuff, did you have to like go through a lot of hoops with the health department and all that, or was it pretty easy to kind of navigate?
Not a lot. I mean, there's a lot of questions, especially, and I'd say it was probably less from the health department and more from like building and fire, because they don't really know what to do with a coffee roaster. So, there were some questions on that, and kind of like, what do we need to do? What do we not need to do? I'm set up kind of under there's different categories with the food processing and stuff like that. And because I'm not cooking anything and I'm not doing any milk-based products and stuff like that, it was a little bit simpler
Right.
of a check off. So, but I didn't catch a whole lot of flack. It
Yeah.
wasn't too bad.
Yeah, because I'm talking to the health department now. Yeah, I'm talking to the health department now, and they're like, you know, I'm telling them I'm going to roast coffee. I'm trying. They said I got to build out this commercial kitchen and everything, and I'm like, that's cool or whatever, you know. So, but they keep asking me like, so what exactly are you doing? And I'm just like, it's roasting coffee, you know, it's what you drink. But they don't, because a lot of people don't realize that coffee's like green and you got to like roast it, you know.
Yeah, and that's what we are doing is we're educating people on that.
Yeah.
And people who are and not like, I always tell people, I'm not here to tell you what you should like. I'm here to maybe help you better understand why you like what you do like. And that was, you know, when I started out and I started going to that coffee roaster across the street from my kids' elementary school, I didn't know. I mean, I was like, green coffee beans? What?
Yeah.
What? So, but standing there and talking to them, same situation, you know, like I learned and, you know, took me down this path. But yeah, you spend a lot. I mean, with the health department and building inspections, there's a lot of questions that they just don't, I mean, not by their fault. They just don't know what exactly, how to rank you or where to put you category wise.
Exactly.
It tends to be either one extreme or the other, you know, like some inspectors want to treat you like a full-on restaurant. Yeah, but that's not what that's not what
I think that's kind of what they're doing here, because it's like they want you to have a full commercial kitchen build out, you know. And I don't think you have to have a grease trap, and I'm like, I'm kind of explaining why I wouldn't need a grease trap, you know, because there's no grease involved. But in the beginning, they were honestly thinking I would need a grease trap too, and it's just like you got to fight through every little situation, it seems like, to, like you said, just educate and just explain and be more detailed. And you thought you were detailed, but you need to be a lot more detailed in exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And it's definitely been a little journey. So
yeah, don't assume that they know what you're talking about. And typically when you enter into the world of milk-based products, then you start going into the grease trap situation, or at least the interceptor.
Do y'all plan to do anything like that? Like, I mean, it seems like you got enough room. You could probably do like a small little.
Maybe, yeah. I think we'd have to be in a different space to do anything else.
Gotcha.
Which is possible. We're in this space a couple more years, and I will stay in the same community, but there's some, you know, opportunities for other spaces in there. And yeah, I think that's something that's down the road for us. We just added on a coffee bike.
I saw that. That thing looks cool, dude.
Yeah. We just, so that it's basically a coffee cart that serves Nitro cold brew on tap. And it gives us an opportunity to get out and go to some of the farmers markets and festivals and weddings and things like that around town. That you know, we're in a community that's a cool little spot to be, but you kind of have to be wanting to go there to be there.
Yeah.
And which is, I mean, I like that part of it. But there's a river right next to us with a waterfall, so it's a really cool area. But you kind of have to be, you know, there for a reason. But so we wanted an opportunity to get out and say, all right, we can get some people in Birmingham, we can get some people in some of the surrounding towns and stuff like that. That weddings, cold brew is huge right now too. So
I feel like every year I hear more and more about cold brew. And it's one of those things, like this year I'm going to kind of dive down it, because I don't really do much with cold brew, but I want to learn more about it. So I'm probably going to get like a little toddy and just start experimenting.
Yeah, let me know if you get that. I'm happy to help you with questions or anything like that. Or
yeah, that's what I'm kind of curious about. So what the Nitro cold brew, are you putting nitrogen in it or something? Is that what the Nitro is?
Yeah. So when you run any sort of like, so the cold brew gets brewed and then it gets kegged. And then once you get it in that keg, you got to pressurize the keg.
Real quick, like a regular beer keg, like something like that?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah. So you got to, and you know, it's a kegerator. Like I've got a refrigerator with a tap on top in the lobby. And the cart itself has a compartment in there that has little mini kegs and a little mini nitrogen tank, and it has a tap on top of the cart. So anyway, when you put it in the kegs, you got to pressurize the kegs, and you have to have something to pump it out of the actual kegerator. With beer, you use carbon dioxide, or like, you think about a Guinness or something like that. There are some beers that you use nitrogen with. Soda uses carbon dioxide. But with coffee, if you use carbon dioxide, it gives it a really bitter, kind of gross flavor. It doesn't work. So nitrogen gives it that really creamy, frothy. If you've ever seen a Guinness pour nitro, and it's got a really thick foam head on it, nitrogen coffee can do that, but it has like a little, you can even see like the nitro bubbles cascade down into it. It's a cool thing, but it gives it a totally different, cold brew in general is going to have a totally different flavor, more of a sweeter, lighter kind of flavor to it than your hot brewed coffee.
Okay.
But
do you offer
that nitrogen, and it gets so much smoother?
Yeah. So do you offer hot coffee with it too, or is it just a cold brew type setup?
We do. Oh, with the bike?
Right.
The bike will be just cold brew.
Okay. Wow. There's that much demand for?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Is that more like night events, or is that like daytime events, or?
Daytime.
Daytime.
Yeah, I typically, in general, with hot, cold, anything, I typically stay away from night events because, I'll do them depending on the event, but people just don't, understandably at night, it's just hard to get people to
drink coffee and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you did any like weddings or anything like that or
I
not.
haven't yet. I've only had the cart a couple weeks. So
okay.
But we will. That's definitely a market that we want to get into, is weddings, and I could totally see people setting that up at their wedding reception. As a
bikes.
photo opportunity too, to sit on the
right.
So
exactly. I kind of want to dive into your canning thing then. How did you get into canning, and like that's just the cold brew as well?
Yes. So it's canning. That was another avenue that was kind of like nobody knows what to do with it. It's there, and there's a million. The research out there. Coffee is such a, and you can for beer you can find a plethora of information, but beer and coffee are not the same thing. And it just so coffee, there's not a lot of information out there. But what I was cold brewing, and I was cold brewing at the shop. And, I was like, nobody around here, there is no product right now that can put to go cold brew in people's hands, like I can. So I started kind of diving into that and figuring out, how can I get this where people can take this with them, and they can take more than one cup home. They can put it in their fridge, just like they're going to buy a bag of coffee. They can get a 6-pack of cold brew and stick it in the fridge. So that's when I started kind of researching what I have to do to be safe, what I have to do it right. The cans come, if you don't know, when you order them, they come in like the can itself, and then the lid part that you pop open is a separate piece.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some beer when you go up to a beer company, and they'll pour it in.
There was a brewery across the street from us, and they were canning, and I was like, that's kind of what got mine.
Gotcha.
So I started asking them some questions, like, what's the process, and kind of getting some ideas from them. Cause I was like, if they can make it safe for beer, then I can make it safe for coffee.
Right.
So that's what we started doing. And it's been a huge hit. I can't make it fast enough. So.
I imagine, especially down here, dude, it's getting hot. I'm not really drinking too many hot drinks during the day.
No. No, we were doing an outside farmer's market in June, and it's 90 degrees at 10 o'clock in the morning. People want coffee, but they don't want a hot cup of coffee. But we were, even at Christmas time, I was selling it like crazy. It was a huge. I saw I heard a statistic around Christmas too, that Starbucks was 70% of their drinks that they sold at Christmas time were cold drinks.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, that's great. I can kind of see it, dude, because in Louisiana, where I live, it did not get below freezing until after the new year. It was like January something before we got our first freeze. And dude, we've been swimming in December before. It's still hot sometimes,
Yep. I lived in McGill, down on the Gulf for a few years. So I grew up in South Carolina, and when I moved to Mobile, I was like, well, I live in the South. It can't get much hotter, but it can. Mobile was like,
Yeah, it's crazy how like even a little bit further, it just
man, it's really humid down here.
yeah, and the humidity. So how long will the cold brew, like the cans, how long will they last? Like how long can you kind of keep them in the fridge?
The way I'm canning it, I'm putting a month on it.
Really?
Yeah, and it's honestly for my set. Like I've had some in my fridge, just my personal stuff that I forgot about them for a couple months, and they're still fine.
Okay.
But that's my best by date on it. Now you can get it. There's like my next step would be an actual canning line that pumps out a lot more at once. And what those end up doing is you get at the end of the line, it drops before it seals it, it drops a dose of liquid nitrogen in there that pressurizes the can and it keeps it fresher a lot longer. I think you can get up to like 5 months on that.
Wow.
And there's co-packers that will do it too. Like you can companies that already have the canning lines.
Yeah, so you send like 10 pounds of coffee to them and they kind of
you have to send you like your recipe and they have to brew. They basically do the whole thing.
Oh
and
wow,
then
okay.
they send it back to you. But most of them have like, minimal I found is 5,000 cans at once. So
Okay.
you're talking about shipping them 5,000 cans and coffee for 5,000 cans. They're going to brew it, they're going to can it, and they're going to ship you 5,000 cans right away that need to be refrigerated.
Yeah, so you got to have some room for it.
Yeah, so you got to have a big walk-in fridge or something because that's a lot of.
That's a lot of product.
Yeah, it's a lot of product, and you have 5 or 6 months to move it all, so that really wouldn't probably be a problem. But it's just the storage would be kind of a mess. So I haven't.
Yeah.
So
What's like your, you ain't got to go into like specific numbers, but is your markup on a can brew better than like a bag of coffee?
they're about the same.
About the same?
Yeah, I try to keep mine pretty standard and make it affordable.
Yeah.
Now, as I'll say, as I were to increase production and get faster, better, more efficient production, that cost will decrease as my volume grows. So that margin should widen quite a bit.
That's what I was thinking. If you get 5,000 cans, I've looked at the bag quantities and it goes down so much once you get into the thousands. You're literally
you can afford to shell out. Like we're still buying, 1,000 bags at a time.
Right.
You can. There's pre-printed options out there that are like, because we were up until about 3 months ago, we were hand stamping all of our bags too. And then we just went to like a hot stamp where it already comes stamped in small quantities. And I think we're about 50 cents or so a bag. But you can go, if you can order it 10,000 at a time, you can go a whole lot less than that. But it's a big chunk of money at once, and it's 10,000 bags. And that's the same with everything,
Yeah. The other thing is just like your time in stamping, and how long it takes and how many hours have you spent stamping bags, and then what's that time worth,
Yeah, and that's why we went to the hot stamping option, because it's not the long-term 10,000 bags at once cost-wise, but it's a whole heck of a lot cheaper than me sitting there and stamping, or me and my kids.
Yeah.
My kids sitting there, so I can have them do something else,
Yeah.
Now I can just grab a bag, it's ready to go. I just throw a label on it and it's ready. So
yeah,
that's the thing I've learned with starting a small business from the beginning, not really knowing what I was doing, to like efficiency is big.
And that's the thing, you don't know until you start. It's like you literally can't plan for all this because you don't know what's going to be happening. You can watch a bunch of videos and stuff, but still, until you start doing it, you're not going to know exactly what you need to do.
We've always said, we're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. Let's just make sure let's keep the cost of those mistakes to a minimum. Make little mistakes rather than gigantic ones that, end up really
right
out the park. So
the other thing too is just like, you're learning the formula. So if you ever wanted to start a supplement company, or if you ever wanted to go into brewing beer, like you already know how to do a lot of the things, marketing, going out to events, you already know how to can. So it's like you've already covered a lot of the basics of business. So the second one, you can really just kind of know what you're doing by then, you know? And I think
Yeah,
that's what's kind of cool about these old roasteries.
yeah, exactly. And I've been told by quite a few people that, your first one is your learning experience. When you open your second location, that's really where you see growth, financially and in every way, because it's the more you spread, every time you add another location, you add another piece to the puzzle that just sort of snowballs on itself.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And then it's just that kind of, I don't know, it's the, as something grows, you kind of deem it more legit, you know? And it's just kind of that thing too. Like you want to go check out the new place, you know,
yeah,
and it's closer, whatever it may be, you know?
yeah.
So, so that's y'all, so what is y'all's plans with that then?
As far as expansion down the road,
Yeah. What's kind of, let's go that route then. As far as, are you focusing more on like the cold brew and stuff like that? Or are you going to focus more on like expanding the roastery portion of it?
I see them going hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I kind of I put that under the umbrella of production. Um, and I think our long-term goal is to increase the production first above everything else. And as that starts to grow, then, that hopefully gives us the opportunity to say, all right, now let's open a cafe. Because it's a whole nother, the running of a cafe, that's a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
I've learned how to roast really well. I've learned how to brew cold brew really well. And that's what I know how to do.
Yeah.
That I kind of like, that's been my motto along the way, is learn how to do one thing really well before you go to the next thing. Because it's easy to just let it all pile on, and then you've got 10 things that you do, but you only do them halfway.
Yeah.
And you get so buried in, like, pulled in so many different directions that,
Right.
so,
And you can also
yeah,
get discouraged and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So eventually a cafe and stuff like that then?
Somewhere down the road. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to expand into that somewhere down the road. And when we get to that point, I probably would look to hire someone that has the experience and knows what they're doing to step in and kind of manage that role. But we'll see when that time comes.
Yeah. Do you have any employees now, or is it really just you and the family?
Just me and the family. Yeah.
And the family?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where we're kind of hitting with the addition of the bike, and summer starting to kick up. And we just last week we just our county did a big they every year they do a small business of the year awards thing or whatever, and we just won small business of the year.
That's
So
cool.
that will probably drum up some attention. I think that people are definitely figuring out who we are and that we're there. So add that and add the bike and add just events going on. We've already, my wife and I have been talking that this summer we're gonna have to start adding, even if it's just someone to come in and run the cart at an event, or
Yeah.
come in, do some customer service at the shop. Um, that time is coming, is this summer for sure.
Yeah. And you're only doing it part-time now, right?
Well, you mean part-time as far as the coffee?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I know you're probably putting in another 40 hours in it, but
yeah,
you have another job or whatever.
I do, yeah. So, but I'm probably putting 40 in easy with the. I mean, right now, to be honest with you, I'm at that phase of business where I eat, sleep, and breathe the business, and
Yeah.
that's what it is, and that's. Uh, I was at a seminar, the small business thing the other week, and one of the. Actually, I think I got the note. I wrote it down because it was so good. But the guy that spoke had started a family business that had or morphed into this massive, now it's a huge nationwide company. But he was saying, with small business, when you're starting out a small business, be positive, be patient, be persistent, and be resilient. Because if you're not those things, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because you're going to put a lot of hours in. You're going to have to stay positive, because the negativity can easily get to you.
Yeah.
And really sticking to what you believe in. Everybody likes to come in the door and tell you that you should do it this way, or you should do it that way, or you should, and that's not to say that all those don't mean something, because they do, but you really do have to have that mission statement, and that vision needs to, if it doesn't line up with that, then you're going to get pulled in so many different directions. You should do this, but you should do that with it.
Yeah. I've had that I've definitely seen that a lot, where there's 100 good ideas, but you only have the resources to pull off 3 of them. But everybody thinks their one idea is the best, but you've got to make sure you're putting those resources into the 3 that you can actually pull off,
Yep.
But I mean, like all 100 of them, they're all great. You could all make them work, but you don't have the resources for all of them at this time,
I always like to say, when someone comes in with a really great idea, usually it's a friend or a family member, that I'll say this, and I'm like, sure, come on, I'll put you in charge of it.
Yeah. Drop $100,000 down and we'll roll with it.
Come on, man. I'll let you run that side of it. Yeah, let's do it.
Exactly.
But yeah, as a small business owner, man, you're the first one to get there. You're the last one to leave, and you're the last one to get paid. So you got to know that. And that's, of course, that's not your long-term goal. But that's where, a lot of times that's where it starts. And it takes time.
With your SF6, would you be able to go in full time with that, or do you feel that's not a big enough roaster to really transfer all the way full time?
If I was to transfer where my day job went away, or my other job went away, that frees up a lot more time for me to roast. I'd have to rearrange my time a little bit, because I can do about 150 pounds a day in an 8-hour day if I'm just cranked, if I'm nonstop all day. So, that's still, that's a lot of coffee, and you can, a few days a week, you can crank out a lot of coffee in a month. But, once you get to that point, then you're starting to kind of play the diminishing returns game, where it's time to move up, because like you said earlier, your time means something. Stamping those bags,
right?
Value,
Yeah, because I get that question a lot. Everybody's always asking, like, what size roaster do you need to make it full time? And I don't know for sure. On like a 2 kilogram, I don't think you can. It definitely has to be bigger than a 2K. But I've always kind of wondered where's that that size that you can actually pay normal bills, a little small car note, your little mortgage and everything like that, or rent, and what's that size look like? I think obviously a 15K or anything like that, you could easily do it if you have the demand and stuff like that. But I didn't know if you think you could probably pull it off with your little 6-pounder.
You could, you could, if you're hardworking enough. You could do it, and that's going to be it. I mean, come across a lot of people that are, I don't know if get rich quick is the right terminology, but I think there's a lot of coffee seems like an easy business, and it's not. I mean, it's definitely not. It's just like any other business. It takes a lot of hard work.
Right.
And I see people come in too big from the beginning, in the sense of and you just dropped $100,000 to get started, and either been roasting for just a couple months or never roasted.
Right.
So that's, to me, that seems to be that I didn't go about it that way. I kind of worked my way up to a point where I was like, all right, I know how to do this really well on a small scale. So let's figure out how to upsize it to a bigger scale, rather than learning at that big scale. Like I said, I always want my mistakes to be mistakes that don't cost a lot.
Exactly.
If I make a $500 mistake, okay. If I make a $5,000 mistake, that's a little bit of a bigger deal.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you can bounce back from a small, setback, but sometimes a huge setback.
Yeah.
It does you in. And you got to go back to the day job for a while.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're entering in, not getting into politics or anything like that, but I think we're entering into a time right now where everybody should be real careful with purposeful with where they're putting their
resources.
Yeah, with their resources. That doesn't mean I'm not, not telling people don't jump into a venture, but just be maybe a little bit more observant than you normally would be to go, all right.
No, I definitely agree there. I mean, just looking at the markets and stuff like that, like, definitely kind of scary right now.
Products are costing a lot more than they used to be.
Inflation's up. Yeah. Isn't, like really in my lifetime, I mean, I'm 35. I have never seen inflation really change that much in a year. I've seen it like, remember when I first started driving, gas was like $1.15, $1.20, but like it's just insane over the past few months what things have, and that's why I was wondering too, people in business like yourself, like keeping up with the coffee prices, keeping up with fuel, like you're having to deliver, go places, like, what you thought your costs were going to be in December are completely different than what your costs are today. So have you, let's talk about that for a second. You're where do you get your coffee from?
A lot, I'd say probably half or just under half of it comes from Genuine Origin.
Okay.
I like them, and I like La Bodega for a small scale roaster. La Bodega is their Cafe Imports sister company.
Gotcha.
And they do 50-pound bags. So
okay.
For small micro roasteries, both of those companies do a great job in keeping their costs manageable, affordable, and their shipping is, I think Genuine Origin is actually free shipping.
I think if you get over a certain amount, I think it is free.
Yeah, and I haven't ordered La Bodega in a while, so I can't remember what they are. But I've slowly started building relationships with a couple of suppliers that are doing direct from farm. So they have direct relationships with the farmers, and they're always offering, hey, you want to go on a origin trip and things like that. So they can take me to the farms. I can meet the people, things like that. And that's really, I would like to eventually transition all my coffee to that model, because I know what they're doing. I know they're taking care of the farmers. I know that the money's going to good resources and actually building up the community that it's coming from. So that's my ultimate goal long term.
Have you been to any different origins or anything?
Not yet. COVID kind of threw a big wrench in that, and so the last couple of years I haven't. I know that there was a Guatemala trip in February that we couldn't go on, so we're hoping they'll go November and February, or the Guatemalan beginning of harvest or beginning and end sort of season. So they usually do a trip at the beginning and trip at the end. So I'm hoping we can go on maybe the end harvest trip for February next year. One of our relationships was with the Guatemalan farm.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I just interviewed a guy, it was about a week ago, and he's from Guatemala, and he's kind of like a coffee hunter down there. He goes to the different farms and finds, specialty micro lots, and he works with, I think, Olin. Onyx.
Mm-hmm.
Onyx, sorry. He works with Onyx, works with them. I don't think he works for them, but he kind of, works for a few different importers and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, you hear like how they live down there and stuff like that, and just like the different lifestyle and how they're kind of bringing coffee. It's just so cool.
What's been fascinating to me too is to get into like the whole, the difference between your low level coffee and your high level coffee, and what makes that difference. And it's so for and I'll say this for people watching maybe that don't know how it works, but coffee is a commodity, just like it's actually the number 2 largest commodity in the world next to oil. But it works just like grain. I grew up on a farm in South Carolina, and tobacco was big. I worked on a tobacco farm when I was a kid. Not so much anymore. That's big, but it was then. But now it's corn and soybeans and things like that. But your crop goes to market, and people come in and they pay, based upon your the market price. And it's the same thing with coffee. It's called the C market price. And if you're selling or if you're buying coffee at the C market price, it's a flat cost. So the farmers don't have an incentive whether the coffee is this good or this good at the C market price. They just need volume. The more they bring to the market, the more money they make. So they will pick it before it's too ready. They'll pick it. They don't have any incentive to put money or resources into any, improvement of quality. It's just not, it's not a good system. And
Right.
it doesn't, I mean, it's about a third of the cost of what specialty prices are. So the specialty companies that, like some of the ones I work with, what they end up doing is they get these relationships with the farms. They come in and they say, we want to help you build up to the level where we can pay you 3 times that C market price. And most of them are like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds amazing. And then they do, and then they see the differences it's making in these communities. And you go from a situation where like the younger generations have no desire to farm because there's no money in it and it's hard, to where they start looking at this as like, I can actually raise my family on this. I can actually do something with coffee. So the younger generations are starting to get more interested in it now. I mean, like, okay, this is a good thing. So
Yeah.
that's what I want to support and put my money into. So
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way with that. And it's just, kind of like that guy was saying down there, some of the best coffee he's had is like, because he has like a little sample roaster he'll bring with him, and like he has a little lab and stuff down there. And he said, but you may travel 8 hours down these roads and stuff to these farms. And he said the roads are all broken, but they don't have trucks and stuff that can ship this coffee out. So they got to rely on these like coyotes to basically ship it out for them. And it's like, they don't have computers and stuff back there. So they have no idea what the price is. So he said they may just offer them $1 and the coyotes will pay them, $1 for all their coffee and bring it into to the mills. And he said, if you can get these, farms out there, these little micro farms that are growing this amazing coffee that are selling it below commodity price to these coyotes. I mean, that's kind of one of the issues too. It's just like, wow, I didn't realize it was like that out there. I figured you don't realize how the markets are so broken there, growing up here and stuff like that. It's not like the farming how we do here is not at all like it is down there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's tons of corruption in it too. I mean, think about the number 2 large. I mean, we would probably all agree in some way, shape, or form that the oil industry has lots of corruption in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's big money, right? Anywhere there's big money, there's going to be corruption. And coffee is the number 2 traded commodity in the world next to oil. There's got to be. I mean, there is a lot of corruption in that side of things. A lot of practices that go on that aren't good. So that's what we want to support, the good practices.
And I think like, as far as like most of the importers I feel that I've kind of spoken with, Showroom and a few others, Coffee Shrub and then Sweet Maria's and them. I don't know. It seems like everybody's kind of on the same page, but I don't know like the importers, because it seems like there's bigger importers than that are, I guess, are for like the commodity grade type coffee that a lot of us in the specialty coffee community, we really don't deal with too much, so I'd kind of like to kind of learn a little bit more about that and just see what companies are the ones out there buying more commodity grade stuff, because I know like we have like Smuckers, JM Smuckers down in New Orleans, which is like Folgers and all that's down in New Orleans. But like what importer, or do they import their own beans? I've always kind of wondered that.
Community is down there too, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, we have Community. Community's right here by me, actually, right there in Port Allen, right there in Baton Rouge, kind of. So, but they're huge. They're pretty good. They're kind of family run. They're still, I don't know much about them as far as like, where they get their coffee and stuff. But I mean, as far as the community around here, they're very, community based and give a lot back, help out. You see a lot of, they sponsor things, ball teams and stuff like that, so they definitely give back around here. But, I don't know how they are with like the farmers and stuff. But so what was your hardest obstacle to kind of overcome, going through this whole process? Is it, like building up your business and stuff like that?
Oh, let's see. Hardest, probably still going through some of these, but and the problems today, I always say that once I figure out the problems today, it'll be the problems of tomorrow. But you're always, and this makes small business sound like a big challenge all the time, and nobody should ever do it. But it's if it wasn't rewarding, nobody would do it. But
Oh yeah.
No, I think probably it's probably the financial management of the business, maybe, and that's a big, broad umbrella. I think the basics of keep your costs low and your markups. I have all that stuff figured out pretty well, but it's as we go into this season right now where we're going to start hiring our first employees. I mean, it's terrifying because at this point the only person I have to let down is myself.
Yeah.
When you start bringing people on board, then you're kind of in this place of like, oh, now I have to now I really got to make this work, because tomorrow I could close the doors and walk away and it's just me.
Yeah.
I still have a job that pays the bills, and it's nobody's dependent on whether I go to the coffee roast tomorrow or not. Don't. But when you start hiring people, it I don't know, little scared of that, but I'm excited to get people on board, and I know that the growth happens when we start doing that and start adding people that are going to add to the team and add their own ideas and thoughts, and that it's going to be nothing but good for the business.
Yeah.
But I'm also, and I've worked in jobs where I've hired people, so it's not, the hiring process doesn't really bother me. I know really what I'm looking for. It's just that having those people depend on me is a little scary.
Yeah, definitely ups the responsibility.
I remember when we were when the build out was done. I mean, we were right at the edge of build out, and in any build out, you've got contractors that you're working with, you've got the city that you're working with, you've got the health department, so you're pulled in a million different directions. And we were just about at the edge of getting ready for inspections. It was almost done, and I remember looking at my wife and I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. She was like, well, it's a little late for that, but she's like, what's up? And I was like, well, now it's real. Now it's like, I was just always garage roasting. Now I have to be legitimate. Now I have to show up and do stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think that's, I was gonna say, I think that's like an important kind of thing to bring up, because you go through these mental phases where, you may not want to continue on, but what's best is to continue on. So you should just go ahead and continue on, because a month, 2 months from now, your mindset's going to be completely different. You're going to be back on, a schedule, kind of how you was in the garage, and it'll be good again. You won't have that mindset of, like you was having. And I think a lot of people have that. And I think that's where, if you allow yourself to quit at that point, that's what happens to a lot of people. And if you can push past that, I think, there's some success behind that.
You're a runner, right?
Right. Yeah.
So am I. And that's it. I mean, when you hit that point where you want to stop, don't stop. And right on the other side of that is you'll be thankful you didn't stop,
Right.
Just that right there, that's that wall that you hit that you're like, just get past it, just get past that hill that you're about to run up. Just run up it, When you get to the top, 10 steps later, 20 steps later, that hill wasn't a big deal anymore,
Exactly. You're looking at the next thing. What's the next issue?
Exactly.
Yeah. And one thing with running too, running is a good analogy. It's like, you may be able to only run 2 miles today, but then 3-4 months from now, you may be running 6 or 7 miles at a time. And it's like, the 2 miles is easy now, but now the 6 miles is hard. And then you run for a year, and all of a sudden you're out there, you can run 15 or 20 at a time, no breaks, really don't need much. And it's like, that becomes kind of easy. And it's just, the more you do something, the easier things get. Running's definitely one of them things, like, where you realize, like, if you just push your body a little bit further, even something as hard as what you thought running that first mile can become very easy if you do it long enough, And I feel that's kind of how business and stuff is too. The first time you start a business, it's hard, because your muscles aren't adapted to it. Your mind's not adapted to it, but you know, like you're saying, like 6 years down the road, and now you kind of got some muscle memory with it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that, I mean, I guess subconsciously I kind of model everything that I do in the business around the whole model of running. Like, I'm not going to go out from the couch tomorrow and try to run a marathon. I'm going to start with a mile, and
right.
then I'm going to do two, and then I'm going to do three. And if I go out, if I would have started this spot, because we tossed around all kinds of ideas when we first, we decided, all right, it's time to have our own space. And some of those ideas were pretty big, but if we had started out like that, it would have been like trying to run a marathon off the couch. We
Yeah.
would have, I mean, we would have flopped in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
So,
I think I just kind of dodged that same bullet. I mean, I was about to drop some money, and you know, the bank, I guess, probably saw through it, which is good for them, because I was about to drop a lot of down payment. I was about to drop a lot of, you know, debt, and it was just going to be. So yeah, I think it's the same way. I think I was about to start off with, you
I
know,
count those, man, as blessings, because at the
yeah,
moment I'm like, oh, I didn't get the loan, or I got, it didn't. I tried that with a roaster that was way too big for me, or we had a space that we were going to go into that we were like, we had this big dream and it would have been amazing, and then it was kind of like, oh, we can't really put that kind of money into it, and then you're sort of defeated at the time, but now when you look back, you're like, that was a blessing, because
yeah,
that would have been a bad thing.
yeah, because it's like, do you stretch yourself so thin that you literally cannot have any hiccups? Because if there is one hiccup, I mean, you're done for, like losing everything. And it's like, man, why? Like, you can't put yourself in that. So, like you're saying, I mean, if you can't run 2 miles, why sign up for a marathon right now? Like, get to where you can run the 2 miles first and then work your way up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely see that. And then kind of going back to the resource allocation thing, like you was saying, I think that's another very important thing, is like, you know, so you have $100,000. How do you smartly use it? You know, so you have $20,000 to start with. How do you, what's your best, you know, how do you allocate it correctly? Or what's the best chance of you succeeding if where you put that money? And I think that's one of the hardest things in business, at least for me, because it's like there's so many, you know, ripe fruit on the tree, and you just want to spend the money on all of it. If it is it ads, is it the machines, is it the technology, is it the, you know what? And it's just like, where do you put the money? And I think if you could ever kind of figure that out, and I haven't figured it out, but I think that's one of the keys to becoming successful in business.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think that's, I mean, uh, for me, it's a lot of prayer, but
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
being like, well, sometimes that gives me directions and sometimes it doesn't. But it's yeah, there's not a formula, and the formula that works for this guy might not work for you. And I try to talk to successful business people that I know, that they may not, I may not use their advice 100%, but I always get something out of it. You know, when we started, when the market started to sort of turn and this inflation started to, like, at the very beginning, I had a friend of ours that's in he's in a different sector of business, but he said, have you raised your prices yet? I was like, well, I don't really want to raise my prices. It's kind of trying to keep them as long. He's like, you need to raise them now. And he's like, I would raise them like 25%. And I was like, well, that's kind of steep. And he's like,
yeah,
yeah, but he's like, I'm telling you, it's coming. And if you don't raise them now, you're going to, one, get caught behind the eight ball. And two, you're going to have to make a bigger jump at once. And it's going to be much more offensive to your customers than if you just do it now.
yeah,
So we did. We went through and raised everything. And it wasn't, everybody understood. Haven't had any, you know, backlash from that. And it's allowed us to still stay sustainable, because we didn't lose 2 months of, we would have been underpriced at that point.
right.
So
Yeah, I think that's kind of a great point. Like, while everybody's talking about inflation, it's probably the time to go ahead and do it now instead of waiting until it's not a subject anymore. And then, people are like, oh, why are you raising now? It's like,
we
yeah,
were at some grocery stores here, and our bags were on the shelves, or our bags were on the shelves. And there's lots of great local roasters here. And for a long time, I was at minimum a couple dollars above everyone else. And, I kind of went back and forth about, well, maybe I should drop it down. This was before, even before COVID, but I was like, maybe I should drop it down and just sort of match where everybody is. No, I have it there for a reason. I need to keep it there. But now what I've noticed is I have not had to raise my prices in the grocery store shelves. Those I've kept steady, but everybody else is right where I am now or above.
Yeah.
So it's been everybody's had to raise. So now it's a equal playing field because they had to do the same with their prices.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They may have been undervalued, originally, but
Yeah.
they've had to make like $5 jump on the shelf, So
Heck yeah, dude.
that's a big thing for a consumer to take on. Is like, man, that just went up $5,
Yeah, that's the thing though. My wife and I were going over the food bill, like the receipts, and it's just like, Jesus Louise, everything, there's nothing under $5 anymore. It's like everything you get is $5 or above,
Well, and we do. I mean, yeah, it's not. We my wife is very good at buying just what we need. We have plenty, but we don't waste a lot because we don't buy a lot of random crazy stuff. And
yeah,
it's and we're pretty consistent with what we buy on a weekly basis. I've seen that bill go.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's feeling that. I mean,
it's definitely going up a lot. Luckily, I mean, I don't know if y'all like have a garden or anything, but down in Louisiana, you can grow literally just about anything you want. So I mean, we got a huge garden. We're growing everything right now. So if something does pop off in a few months, we could just disappear for a while and
that's right.
Nobody contact us,
And we got plenty of coffee, so
exactly. So heck yeah, dude. Well, heck, go ahead and wrap it up. Any last words you want to say, or anything you want to kind of put out?
I don't think so, man. You got any other questions that were left out there, or?
No, that's pretty much it, dude. I do want to kind of get with you on the cold brew stuff, kind of offline. I definitely want to hit you up on that. And
yeah, I'd be happy to do that with you.
Yeah, because I want to learn that. It's one of the things like, dude, I live in Louisiana and it seems like everybody's always talking about cold brew and it's getting more popular every year. And it's like, I got to learn it. So
I've heard good stuff about the toddies. I've never used one. I have a big, huge stainless steel 30-gallon thing that I use. But I've heard good stuff about those.
Yeah, I feel like the toddy's like the Beamer. It's like, seems like what everybody kind of starts on, So
yeah.
I was going to get one and try
does
it
Toddy
out.
make their own bags?
Does who?
Does Toddy make their own bags?
I think they do. I have to look. I think they do like make bags and stuff for it.
I'm using a company called Alto.
Alto?
ALTO, cold brew. And that's where I get my bags from. And they have a bunch of different sizes. Because I've got a big stainless steel vat that it's got a microfilter screen on the bottom. But what I was in, so it's made so you put the water and the grinds in there together, and the water filters through that microfilter and it comes out of your tap at the bottom, and then you keg it from that. But what was happening is that microfilter over time was getting clogged. So gotcha. I ended up also getting those cold brew bags. So I put my grinds in the bags and then put the bags in the water. So it's kind of double filtered.
Yeah.
It doesn't clog up that. And I've liked those Altos a lot.
So with the bags and the coffee, are you just putting like Chemex type grind in there, or like French press type grind, or
past French press?
Oh, really? So as coarse as you can do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool deal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna start experimenting with that.
So, yeah, play around, man. And I have gone up and down with my volumes. You can Google it, and there's 100 different recipes. They're all pretty similar.
Yeah, that's why I was going to kind of start with the toddy. It seems like there's 500 videos on it, so I figure one of them would be pretty.
Yeah, start with just stuff a good rich roast, and just play around with it and see what you like.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. Well, shoot, Bert, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it.
And I'll link all your stuff down below, your Instagram, everything like that, your website, and Definitely go check out his Instagram. Dude, you got a nice Instagram. I ain't gonna lie. Do you keep it up or does somebody else?
I keep it up.
You kill it, dude.
I do everything.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I keep
Wearing
it up.
all the hats.
Yeah, wearing them all. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, I appreciate it, dude.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Coffee Runs Deep podcast. I truly appreciate you listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I am trying to keep these podcast episodes ad-free, so I really want to give a big shout out to my Patreons for the support and allowing that. If you would like to support this podcast, a link to Patreon will be in the show notes below. Also, please go follow Bert and check out his cold brew coffee cart. His social links will be below as well. Thanks again, and I will see you next week. Later.